Welcome back, everybody. This is my new video entitled "What if NWA had a TV deal and was as big as it was in the 80s?" Now, probably won't say that in the video heading, but whatever. That is what the topic of the video. Now, NWA does have a TV deal, and it could potentially be as big as it was in the 80s. I think they're on their way there with the TV deal, and the size of the shows they've been running in front of 3,000 people, because they found a market, which is the Hispanic market, and they're targeting them because there is no lucha in the United States that they can really go and see. So the NWA has become that type of thing. It's not pure lucha, but it is still a good thing for them to go and see, and so they're making a fair bit of scratch and some progress with that. They're making, they've had the shows with 3,000 in attendance, so they could get back up to that level they were before, especially now with this TV deal, depending on how long it lasts, and if they can get on a stronger network eventually, which they may do eventually. Now, and the TV show is pretty good as well. It may be the best TV show in terms of the actual wrestling that I have seen. The production values aren't very good, but it is an enjoyable show. You can watch it on their website, which is just nwawrestling.com. And so, alright, so for NWA to be successful now as it was in the 80s and have a strong national TV deal, it would have had to have picked up right after WCW split off from the NWA. Now, if that had happened, they probably to keep a TV deal. I'm sorry, I keep coughing. You would find that to keep that TV deal, or to keep the promotion that would be doing it, they would do what they're doing now, which is the smartest way, which is to have it directly under the people who are the board. The NWA board of officials, because NWA is just a sanctioning body, and they would be directly supervising the TV show and the shows that are run for the TV show as a group. So if one promotion broke off, and that promotion was the one that had the TV deal, it wouldn't like what previously happened when they had a successful territory. They would break off and it would do a considerable amount of damage, but because this show would be directly underneath them and directly under their supervision, which really is the only way to go if you're a sanctioning body of a massive amount of promotions. They could have stayed on until today, and you probably would have found that if they did get back on TV, they still would have kept some popularity, because the territories did still have some popularity going into the early 90s. They were still able to bring fans in, but wrestling was becoming monopolized, so they would have been third behind WCW, because they would have lost that WCW the TV deal there, and so they probably would have gone on a weaker network. But let's say, for the sake of the question, they did get back up to speed, and WCW went out of business. NWA is very hard to put out of business. You really can't do it, because, as I said, it's just a sanctioning body, not a promotion. And taking that into account, you probably wouldn't have the NWA. You probably wouldn't have TNA. So it would just be NWA number 2, once again like it was in the 80s, and WWE at number 1, and be in that same position. Of course, if NWA was as big as it was in the 80s, you would probably find that a lot of WWE guys would, instead of going to TNA, they would go to the NWA territories, or they just go onto the TV show and using that exposure to keep them in people's minds, and then tour through the territories. Like, Kurt Angle wouldn't have gone from WWE to, because TNA didn't exist, he would go to NWA, and he'd probably be made an NWA champion and overused like he's in TNA, or maybe not overused, but he would be able to take that time off, still go on TV tapings and things like that, and then tour the territories, which would make keep the system strong. If NWA did have a TV deal under this thing, the territory system would be very strong, and you may not see promotions like Ring of Honor rise during the 90s. ECW may not have broken off, or maybe it would have, but it just wouldn't have had the impact it did back in the 90s, because ECW was a big NWA promotion within the United States. If they had a good national TV deal today, they would be the number 2 promotion, and I do feel that they would be more suitable to compete with the WWE, because NWA has always stuck to that simple formula. They know what they are, and that's a wrestling promotion. They are wrestling as a sport, and most of the NWA territories, if you look at them, follow those guidelines, and I like that. Yeah, some of the promotions are different and special, but the NWA as a whole is the structure of it is as a sporting organisation or sanctioning body. And TNA, the problem with TNA competing today is they are not an alternative. People turn it on, and it's just the same as the WWE, just with different setup, and even though the production values are very similar. But NWA really would provide that alternative. You wouldn't feel like you were watching sports entertainment. You would feel like you were watching pro wrestling. As we've seen with their TV show, it is vastly different, and it does book professional wrestling more legitimately. And people on the internet who I've spoken with, like, you can't do that anymore. Wrestling changed in the 90s. Well, it's not the 90s anymore. It's 2008 now. And as we've seen from promotions like Ring of Honor in the United States, and a few others, that fans really are going to accept a wrestling promotion as wrestling as a sport. People thought that because Attitude Era was so successful, fans are only going to accept sports entertainment from now on, but they will accept professional wrestling as a sport, and that's where the industry is heading. The industry is always changing, just like any industry, and it's not 1990 anymore or the 80s. People do want to see professional wrestling as a sport come back, and that's why NWA is making ground again. That's why Ring of Honor is becoming as successful as it is. There are always going to be storylines now, but you still will have wrestling billed as a sport. And if NWA had a TV deal with the massive access to wrestlers that they would have, I think they would probably get 2 ratings, not 0.2, 2-point ratings. And they'd probably have 10, 12 pay-per-views a year, if not, maybe 6 per year at the very least. And they'd be running. I'm tossing up whether they would still hold Starrcade. I know they probably wouldn't, because that was with WCW. But they would still be running those big shows, and they would have, if they were as big as they were in the 80s, they would have that money, and they would have that fan base, and they would have that alternative product that you need to compete with the WWE. They may do north of 2, things, but as I said, NWA, because it's a sanctioning body, it's hard to put out of business, and you would find that people would pay if a promotion was, if NWA was as big as it was in the 80s. Today, people would be paying big money to get their promotion to be a part of the NWA, so they pay more for membership, and they pay more to get their wrestlers put on television to help their promotion. And so that way, NWA would always be well off for money, whereas TNA is an independent promotion, really, that gets all of its funding to stay at a major level from Panda Energy, and wrestlers they have to scout for in the independent scene, whereas NWA they would have their eyes on all these territories, so they would know who's doing what and how good so and so is, and they would be able to just assemble the best wrestlers, or the wrestlers who bring in the most money or make the most money for the NWA, and put them on TV, as well as bring in wrestlers that territories want to show, which would usually be their best, or what have you, put it on TV, and it would be NWA today would be the number 2 promotion. There would be no TNA. There probably wouldn't be Ring of Honor. There may be. I'm not entirely sure, but they would be the second strongest promotion within the United States. Anyway, I'm out. I'll see you later. Goodbye.